You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 25th of June 2026 on Monocle Radio. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting live from Studio 1 here at Midori House in London. I'm Thomas Waterhouse. Coming up on today's programme, a closed-door Capitol Hill lunch turned sour with President Trump admonishing several Republican senators over the Iran war. Monocle's Chris Cermak is here to tell us more.
Yes, Thomas, that lunch led to the Senate reversing itself on an Iran war powers resolution later in the day, but that doesn't mean that Donald Trump will get the money he needs for the war in Iran.
We'll also dive into our new quality of life issue with a refreshing splash in the Danish capital, plus a vast archive of blueprints and designs by the late architect IM Pei will soon have a new home at the university where he learnt his trade. And with a 3-0 World Cup win against Scotland under his home country's belt, an even bubblier than usual Fernando Augusto Pacheco will bring us another football-themed Global Countdown.
Yes, indeed, Thomas. It's time for the fourth installment of the Global Countdown World Cup. And today we look at the number one songs in Egypt, Spain, Cape Verde and Uruguay.
All that right here on The Briefing with me, Thomas Waterhouse. A very happy Thursday to you all. It's another hot and sunny day here in London, but we're starting today's briefing with some stormy scenes in the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. For over an hour yesterday, President Trump hit out at Republican lawmakers with the US war with Iran, one of the main bones of contention there. This standoff came a day after the Senate adopted a resolution to halt the conflict or seek congressional approval before ploughing ahead with further military action. It was the 11th time this year that the upper house has voted on an Iran war powers measure. To give you just a taste of how tense things got, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy described Trump as being as mad as a murder hornet, while Senator Ted Cruz was perhaps a little more measured. He referred to the meeting as being spirited and candid. Joining me here in Studio 1 is Monocle's senior news editor Chris Cermak, who's been tracking this story. Good afternoon to you, Chris.
Good afternoon, Thomas.
I hinted at the intensity of this meeting just there, but just how heated did this really get?
I mean, by all accounts, it was extremely heated with some of the things that you mentioned there. Another quote that I like from a Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas described it as very much like a hospital board meeting when a bunch of doctors are yelling at each other. So there were lots of colorful language that you don't normally get, especially when you're talking here about a meeting, closed-door meeting at lunch between Republican senators and their Republican president. So the fact that all of this has come out about something that is meant to be within the party shows just how significant I think it was and just how heated it really got.
And what does this spat tell us about Donald Trump and the length of his fuse when it comes to Iran, to the Iran war and the efforts to find peace?
Well, he doesn't have a very long fuse, does he? And I think what you see here is it's not really necessarily about peace or even about Iran itself, because what's important to say is this war powers resolution that was passed yesterday was symbolic. It didn't actually do anything necessarily. It asks, demands, if you will, of Trump to come to Congress before he goes to war with Iran. But this is a symbolic vote. It is not a piece of legislation that goes before Donald Trump himself. So he was angry over something that was a symbolic rebuke of him, to the point that he not only lambasted senators for it, but then also demanded a reversal, which the Senate then obliged with, and later on in the day basically reversed itself on a symbolic resolution to once again sort of vote down a war powers resolution. So it does show you in that sense that for him, all of this is about the optics and who has the power here. To his somewhat defense, you could say his argument was, well, this does send a weird signal to Iran, doesn't it? I am trying to, negotiate peace here, and I am making threats at the same time that this war could restart if they don't agree to peace. So that is something where the Senate was certainly trying to clip his wings.
Chris, there's one Republican senator who's been singled out for scrutiny by Donald Trump. That's Bill Cassidy from Louisiana. He defied Trump in Tuesday's vote, but then eventually fell back into line. Does this mean that Donald Trump still has the means and the capabilities to keep the party in check?
Well, yes and no. I mean, Bill Cassidy is an interesting case because he's a senator from Louisiana who actually will not be able to run again because Donald Trump backed an opponent of his in a Republican primary. So Bill Cassidy will be out in November. And as a result of that, he is freer to speak his mind, to get into a fight like this with Donald Trump. And so this is, if you will, a little bit of Trump's own doing. If Cassidy had an election to fight, then he might stay a little more on Donald Trump's side. Nonetheless, yes, in order for both sides to kind of save face, Bill Cassidy got a briefing from J.D. Vance and others, so he declared himself satisfied with the fact that he had heard what is going to be happening in Iran and therefore changed his mind on this vote. That was his way of saving face and giving Trump at least a little bit of a win.
On the back of this clash, Chris, Trump is now asking lawmakers to approve an $87 billion package for, quote, urgent needs linked to the Iran war. How much of an uphill battle will Donald Trump have to get this approved?
He does have an extremely uphill battle because all Democrats basically have said they will not vote for any additional funding for Iran, for the war in Iran, because they oppose that war. And then you have this group of 4 to 5 skeptical Republicans as well. So you've heard many in the Senate saying basically that at this point, this vote will not take place. Also because it must be said that within that $80 billion, there are also various other pet projects for the military that Trump has tried to add in there instead of going through the usual appropriations process. So the Senate is still not happy with Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say. And this is going to be a fight that we're going to see. And this is, of course, now we're talking material stuff. We're not just talking symbolism. It's a vote on money. That's going to take a while to get through.
And Chris, just on the domestic front, Trump is now also refusing to ink a rather key housing bill. Is this his act of revenge?
It was his act of revenge. So yesterday there was meant to be finally a win for Republicans. And what was interesting as well was this was for once a bipartisan measure to improve housing affordability in the United States. This was something that passed the House of Representatives. It passed the Senate as well. There was going to be a signing ceremony for it yesterday, and then Trump abruptly reversed that. He is upset about the Iran War Powers Resolution. He is also upset that the Senate is not passing an electoral reform package that he wants ahead of the midterm elections in November, which would include things like voter ID laws. So that is something he's upset about. Again, another thing that has been a thorn in the side for Republicans. They don't want this bill passed on electoral reforms. Trump now holding this hostage, holding this housing affordability bill hostage as a result. It just shows how difficult this relationship is getting. You are seeing senators and people in Congress a little more open about their frustrations with Trump as his approval rating dips. And as we face a midterm election in November that Republicans are very nervous about, they want to do something about affordability, and Trump is making it hard for them to do that, Thomas.
I want to widen this out a little bit, Chris. We do have 5 months to go now until the midterms. The Iran war is, slowly, we're hearing, discussions about peace. How will the conflict and the solutions being put forward play out with voters?
Well, this is the big question, isn't it? But what is clear is that the Iran war itself is not popular. Recent polls show that about only 1/4 of Americans believe that the Iran war was worth the cost. And even if you are now seeing oil prices come down again, which will help somewhat, nonetheless, prices have risen quite significantly in the United States as they have in other places around the world. This is what Republicans are so nervous about ahead of those November midterms. It's why they want to put the focus back on the domestic economy, back on things like housing affordability. But As you say, at the same time, we have these threats from Donald Trump to restart the war if he wants to, if there isn't a peace deal. So much of this is going to come down to J.D. Vance and the next 60 days. Is there going to be a resolution? Is the Iran issue finally put to bed, at least for now, allowing Republicans to kind of move away and when it comes to November itself, at least talk about other issues? But even if they talk about these other issues, it's going to be a steep hill climb for them right now to maintain the Senate and maintain control of the Senate and the House.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. That was Chris Chermak, our senior news editor. Now here's Hassan Anderson with the day's other news headlines.
Thanks, Thomas. Rescue teams are searching through collapsed buildings after 2 powerful earthquakes struck Venezuela, causing widespread destruction in and around Caracas. Officials have confirmed dozens of deaths, while US Geological Survey modelling suggests that the final death toll could reach into the thousands. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has told Gulf allies that any future agreement with Iran will take their security concerns into account as he wrapped up a regional tour to build support for the Trump administration's proposed deal. Speaking in Bahrain, Rubio also insisted Iran would never be allowed to charge ships for using the Strait of Hormuz after Tehran's wartime disruption of one of the world's busiest shipping routes. Monocle has released the 19th edition of its annual Quality of Life survey, naming Tokyo the world's most livable city, ahead of Copenhagen and Lisbon. Rather than relying solely on statistics, the survey combines data with the judgment of more than 40 correspondents around the world, assessing everything from safety and governance to culture, nightlife and green spaces. To go and read the full list, head to monocle.com now. And Sotheby's has set a new record for a London evening sale after works from a collection raised almost £400 million. The auction, led by paintings from artists including Amedeo Modigliani and Lucian Freud, has been hailed as a boost for London's position in the global art market. Freud's Sleeping by the Lion Carpet, a portrait of social services supervisor Sue Tilley, sold for £29.3 million. Tilley was recently interviewed on Monocle Radio's The Briefing. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Thomas.
Thanks very much, Hassan. That was Hassan Anderson. Let's move on now and get the latest business headlines with Bloomberg's Ewan Potts. Good afternoon to you, Ewan.
Hi, Thomas. Good to speak to you.
Thanks for being with us again. Ewan, tech stocks set to open higher in New York later today. Just what is the catalyst?
Yeah, a year ago, we probably wouldn't be talking about results from a fairly obscure US chip maker called Micron. But the AI boom and the colossal demand for microchips has seen the company's shares rise a rather impressive 723% in just the last 12 months. And that's propelled it into the world's top 10 most valuable corporations. And the latest blockbuster results from Micron have added a good squirt of fuel onto the tech stock barbecue. Analysts were already expecting revenue in the current quarter to grow to $43 billion. Micron says that it expects revenue to be $50 billion, and it sees no sign of demand slowing down. Now, Micron makes memory chips, and fair to say it is a market in oligopoly. There are only really 3 sizable players in the world, and they are all struggling to satisfy demand. That is creating shortages in areas like computers, phones, and cars, which are increasingly stuffed full of chips these days. But for Micron, who are able to raise their prices with no sign of demand falling, it is very much happy days.
But Ewan, good news for Micron is not necessarily good news for the rest of us. What are the wider implications of the AI boom?
Yeah, we've had some very good news on the inflation front today, with the benchmark oil price dropping below the level when the Iran war started. In fact, there is some talk about oversupply in the oil market at the moment. So that should soon start to feed through to lower energy prices for consumers. But when it comes to anything touched by the AI boom, well, that is a different story. I've been reading a great deep dive in today's Wall Street Journal about how the AI build-out is raising the price of everything from smartphones to electricity. One economist quoted by the newspaper says that while much of the conversation is focused on what AI can do, the build-out itself is strikingly physical. The data centers need not just computing equipment, but cooling systems, electric and fiber optic cables, backup generators, and much more besides. So the price of all of these things is being bid up. And one of the more obvious sectors affected, just to tie it back to Micron, is anything which needs microchips. Nintendo, Microsoft and Sony have all raised prices on their devices over the last few months, and price hikes are coming for Apple products as well. Chief Executive Tim Cook says that the jump in costs is unlike anything that he's seen in any area during his career spanning more than 40 years.
Bloomberg's Ewan Potts, thank you very much. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. You're back with The Briefing. Today marks the release of Monocle's annual Quality of Life survey in the new July-August edition of the magazine. All this week on The Briefing, we've been chronicling stories from some of the cities making the list. A wee spoiler alert, number 2 in this year's survey is Copenhagen, where nearly 25 years ago, residents were given an urban bathing pool that's open all year round. So, on a hot June day like today, what better way to find joy than with a summer dip and dive off the harbour side in the Nordhavn neighbourhood? Carla Hyeni has found why these blue spaces are so important to locals.
When Copenhagen's first harbour bath opened in 2002, a new urban experience came to life. People could now jump into the water right in the city centre. Those who have had the experience of swimming outdoors in their own city know what a luxury this is. There is little that compares to the feeling of diving into refreshing water after work on a summer day, and this feeling is something that Copenhageners know well. And the best part is, it's completely free. Indeed, Copenhagen is a pioneer in the redevelopment of waterfronts, and it has inspired many other cities to rethink the way rivers, harbors, lakes, and other blue spaces could increase the well-being of citizens, especially as summer temperatures reach new highs. On the long summer days in the Danish capital, you'll find it hard to put your towel down on the boardwalk before jumping in. And if you do find a spot, you'll be in the company of many others who, just like you, came to the waterfront for a bit of relaxation. There are kids waddling in the shallow pools, adventurous teens somersaulting off the diving platforms, those doing laps in the swimming lanes, and all sorts of people lounging on the waterfront and basking in the sun, either with friends or on their own. Even in the winter, you won't be alone. You'll be met by the brave winter bathers jumping into ice-cold water and the lucky members of the saunas. I say lucky because the waiting list is reputed to be 10 years long. Swimming in the Copenhagen harbour wasn't always a reality, though. It took 10 years and 135 million euros of investment to clean up the water, upgrade the sewage system, and install infrastructure to make it safe enough for swimming. This is because, like in many other urban areas, industrial activities and a growing population had polluted the harbour water. But in a matter of years after the first harbour bath opening, the harbour had transformed into a vibrant public space, at least after people's initial skepticism about how clean the water actually was. Today, there are over 14 official swimming spots in the city, and the current mayor is considering making the entire harbour a free swimming zone, with specific restricted areas reserved for boat traffic only, which essentially turns today's logic on its head. The most recent harbour bath to have opened in Copenhagen is Sankai. The Sankai bath looks familiar, with a boardwalk, diving platforms, ladders to get in and out, swimming lanes, a sauna, and of course the yellow buoys to demarcate the swimming zones. The whole structure is made of wood, which gives it a warm, soft, and inviting quality. The Sankai bath is located in the North Harbour district, which used to be an industrial port area, but it's now being redeveloped into a modern residential, commercial, and cultural district. It's the biggest urban development in Northern Europe, and it involves reclaiming land in a strait separating Denmark and Sweden to make space for 70,000 new residents. Today, there are nearly 4,000 residents in the North Harbour, and it's already seen by many as an attractive neighbourhood to live in. But what makes it so? More than the trendy cafes and restaurants, modern buildings, beautiful Danish architecture and design, there is the harbour. And walking around, you really get a sense of what the architects and planners mean when they say that the North Harbour is a neighbourhood emerging on the water. More than being surrounded by the strait, the plans include canals that flow between buildings, basins for people to swim, and of course, the Sankai harbour bath. All of these water elements really come together to create the idea of a floating city. As soon as it opened, the Sankai harbour bath became the most popular in Copenhagen, seeing more visitors in its first summer than the two previously most visited baths put together. and it's what brings the most visitors to the North Harbor. But even with the crowds that make the baths busy and bustling places, they still retain this calm and friendly atmosphere characteristic of Danish living. The harbor baths are really a pride for many Copenhageners and a cornerstone of what livability means for a city that is often referred to as one of the greenest in the world. They serve as a gathering place, offering a bit of relaxation from the busy city life and respite from the hot summer days, which, yes, do exist in Denmark.
You were listening there to Carla Hyeni in Copenhagen. And a quick reminder for you, Monocle's July-August summer edition, together with our Quality of Life survey, is on newsstands now. And we'll be dedicating a full episode of the briefing to the joyful topic of quality of life tomorrow. You're listening to Monocle Radio. Next, he's the man who put the pyramid in Paris, put up a new city hall in Dallas, and provided Boston with a presidential library. The award-winning architect IM Pei left his mark with dozens of projects around the world before he passed away in 2019 at the age of 102. He arrived in the US in 1935 to study, first at the University of Pennsylvania, before transferring to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or the MIT. That's where a landmark donation of Pei's archives is now being transferred. Jonathan Duval is the assistant curator of architecture at the MIT Museum and the project lead for this archive transfer. He joins us now live. Good afternoon to you, Jonathan, from London.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. When you personally think of IM Pei and what he achieved, just what springs to mind?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the way that he always balanced looking towards the future while also respecting history. And I think we see that in really every single one of his projects. Closer to home, he designed for iconic buildings on MIT's campus here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that comes to mind too, of course.
Let's talk about the archives being transferred to where you are. Just what kinds of things are stored in these blueprints, in these designs?
Well, it's everything you might imagine in an archive like this. It's the design drawings, the construction drawings, the correspondence with clients, with governments, with other stakeholders. But what's quite exciting about this material is that much of it has not been seen before and not been gone through before. So in some ways, we don't really know what we'll be finding.
Some listeners listening in might say that the best way to actually remember Pei and learn about his work and his legacy is to actually go and look at the buildings that he designed, the buildings that he constructed. What would you say to that? And how do these archives perhaps complement his bricks and mortar legacy?
Well, visiting a building is certainly important for getting a sense of the architect's goal, but I always try to remember that architecture is not just a product, it's also a process. And that's what's revealed with an archive. You know, all of these letters and news clippings and photographs that really document that architecture is, it's not a technical problem to solve necessarily. It's a social problem that's solved in collaboration across a community. And that's what the archive can reveal, that visiting a building might not.
What challenges or hurdles are involved when someone moves such a precious trove of material? Of course, here in Europe, we have discussions and debate about how the Bayeux tapestry is being moved to the British Museum from France. Just how delicate an operation is this for you?
It's quite delicate, and thankfully I'm not the only one working on it. The archive has been stewarded by decades for the firm by the firm that Pei founded in New York, Pei, Cobb, Fried and Partners. So they have the archive currently, and we are slowly, project by project, going through the materials. And what we're trying to do is get what we call both physical and intellectual control over the items. So physically, we're making sure that everything's in good condition, that there's nothing in there that needs to be separated out so that things can be preserved. We're doing conservation work, but we're also getting intellectual control. We're figuring out exactly what's there and, most importantly, how to describe what's there. So that way this archive is useful for researchers and for the public.
What does this acquisition mean for your museum and the fact that this will all soon be under one roof? How important is it that it will all be in one place together?
It's incredibly significant. The MIT Museum entered a new chapter a few years ago when we moved our location to Kendall Square, a much more prominent innovation district within Cambridge, Massachusetts, right on the edge of MIT's campus. And we're looking to become MIT's public lab. So I think by having this archive, there's a very interesting way that we can engage both with scholars and experts, but also with a general public who might have an interest in design and architecture. And by having really more than half a century of records related to IM Pei's work, we'll be able to uncover hopefully very interesting through lines. So it's quite significant that this is all in one place.
Jonathan, you mentioned there the general public. Just how can visitors come and enjoy this new collection when it arrives at your museum?
Well, once it arrives, we hope to have a robust program of public programs, of events, of tours, but we also hope to host exhibitions. And it's our mission as a museum, like it is for many museums, not to just be, a random attic full of things or a hoarder's house. We're meant to make the material available so anyone can ask to see something. But it's through public programs and exhibitions that we really hope that this archive will become activated. Also at MIT, we have the oldest university program in architecture in the country. And we're looking forward to using this archive in interesting ways through teaching.
Okay, Jonathan Duval, thank you very much. You were listening there to Jonathan Duval, Assistant Curator of Architecture at the MIT Museum and Project Lead on the Pei Archive transfer. Regular listeners of this show will know that we have a new format to close the briefing on a Thursday, a segment that's tailored to tie in with the World Cup taking place across Mexico, the US and Canada. Our senior correspondent, Fernando Augusto Pacheco, is with me here in Studio One to bring those of you in the dark up to speed about his marriage of music and the beautiful game. Fernando, first things first, your home country, Brazil, beat Scotland 3-0 in their latest match. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very good because I was not optimistic about Brazil at the beginning, but then yesterday I was like, the beautiful game is back. So I was very excited. And I have to tell listeners as well that I'm actually wearing the away kit of Japan, which are potentially our next competitors on Monday at 6 p.m. London time. So that will be the last day that I'll be wearing this kit, but it looks quite nice.
So are you supporting Brazil? Are you supporting Japan?
Oh, Brazil, without a doubt. I love Japan, as you know, but of course I'll be supporting Brazil.
Okay, let's just recap the rules of this game for our listeners who don't know what the new global countdown is all about.
So every week I'm looking at the number one songs in the different groups of the World Cup, and today's the fourth installment. So we're looking at groups G and H. So to qualify, you need a local artist and number one. So some countries in those groups, they have been eliminated. So no more Belgium, no more Iran, no more New Zealand, and no more Saudi Arabia. But 4 countries are here, and we'll be looking at them. And then at the end, I'll pick a winner to play in the grand final on the 16th of July.
Okay, let's start things with a song from North Africa. This is an Egyptian song.
Egypt is always, they have a fantastic music market, so not a surprise they have a local artist and number one, and 2 big stars there. This is Hamaki featuring Shireen with Bahareya, which means free. Even if you don't understand Arabic, it's a very gentle song. It's about a lovely sea breeze. It's about spending afternoon tea together. It's quite gentle. But I have to say, Thomas, I was reading more about Shireen. She's a singer and actress. She had quite a turbulent life. Even her family sectioned her. It's been quite intense, but now I'm glad that she's back with new music, and it's very gentle, it's very breezy.
It was very gentle.
Very gentle, so it's a good start with Egypt there.
Okay, let's move on now to Europe and a song from Spain.
Spain, another very strong music market here in Europe. We have Quevedo. What I like about Quevedo, and I'll tell you more, that his music very much relates to the Canary Islands where he grew up, even the beats of his music. So let's have a listen. Quevedo featuring Elvis Crespo with La Graciosa.
It's quite full on.
It is full on, but you feel the vibe immediately.
You do.
You start shaking your hips or your shoulders or whatever.
You were.
Yeah, or whatever you want to shake. But and Quevedo, this song is kind of, maybe I can say it's a merengue song, because Elvis Crespo, he's a legendary American merengue singer as well. So I guess this rhythm is quite popular in the Canary Islands. And even, the album that this song is in is called El Baifo, which is kind of a term used for the locals there. So I love that he's been quite specific about his roots as well. It feels very summery too.
Okay, we're going to head off the coast of West Africa now to Cape Verde.
Sometimes songs give me goosebumps, and this is one of them. It's a World Cup song. Of course, it's a very special year for Cape Verde. It's their first World Cup, and they made this song, which is a combination of the best musicians from Cape Verde. So there are a lot of kind of different music styles together, and the song is called Nos Hora Já Chega, which means our time has arrived in Cape Verdean Creole. Let's have a listen. She was talking Tubarões Azuis, the blue sharks. That's how the football team is. And I love, this music's beautiful, of course. There's a bit of Portuguese there, the official language, but of course, Cape Verdean Creole. And I've seen the video, this could have been easily like a cheap kind of tourism montage, but it had a lot of soul, and I think this is very beautiful. It's very easy to do a cheesy kind of, World Cup track, and that's not it.
Dare I say that that's my favourite so far, but there's one more song to come. One more song to come, that's from Uruguay.
And it's another World Cup song. That's the fun thing as well when I'm doing this, because there are a lot of World Cup tracks. And number one, a different vibe. I think this is more about being proud of being Uruguayan. I think there's a sense of humor there. It's the musician El Reja with Nacho Algorta with Ser Uruguayo, to be Uruguayan.
Me dijo llorando, mira qué orgullo ser uruguayo. Estamos locos, descontrolados, mira qué orgullo ser uruguayo. Ni somos pocos ni abandonamos, mira qué orgullo ser uruguayo. Estamos locos, descontrolados, mira qué orgullo.
I love the Uruguayan accent, orgullo. They have a specific way of saying, sorry, my Spanish accent's terrible. But it's a song about being proud of being Uruguayan. We're crazy, out of control, we never give up. And I got Uruguay on the office sweepstakes as well. So, I wouldn't mind to see them.
You got a personal...
I got a personal attachment there to Uruguay.
Okay, we've got 4 songs there. It's time to choose a winner. Who are you going for?
It's been an easy one because it's not only a World Cup song, but it's a beautiful one. And I think Cape Verde is charming us all in this World Cup. So well done.
Yes.
They are through the next round.
Happy.
I'm very happy. So they join South Korea, Turkey and Côte d'Ivoire for the big final on the 16th of July.
Brilliant. I love that. Fernando Augusto Pacheco, thank you for joining us. And there'll be more musical World Cup fun in next week's edition of The Briefing here on Monocle Radio. That's on Thursday next week. And that's all for this edition of The Briefing. It was produced by Chris Chermak. Our researcher was Josefina Astrid Nagler-Gomez. And our studio manager was Elliot Greenfield. The Briefing is back tomorrow at the same time with a Quality of Life special. I'm Thomas Waterhouse. Thanks very much for listening and goodbye from everyone here at Midori House in London.